Okay, so I need to do something about this wobbly motor mount and the fact that the plywood is directly pressing on just the foam. And as you can see in there, it's all full of gaps and everything. I didn't actually notice this because it fits in quite nicely with just the plywood only, but as soon as you stick a motor on the back or something that you can sort of grab hold of it and wriggle it a bit, then you notice that it's really wobbly. So what I've decided to do is just fill this up with epoxy microspheres, put some Glad wrap on the plywood bit again, and just jam it in there all the way in, and hopefully the epoxy microspheres will sort of splurge out a little bit and fill all these little crevices in there. And there are a few places I don't want the epoxy and microspheres to go onto, so I'm going to leave the heads of the screws there to give a little bit of a clearance there. And the other place obviously is this passage that goes into the center of the fuselage for the motor wires. So I found this piece of PVC or nylon tube or whatever that is, and it's the perfect diameter to fill up that gap. And I've just made it go all the way in there like that. Now I suspect that this is probably not going to stick to the epoxy very well, and that's what I'm hoping for, to be able to take that out afterwards. But in the worst case, if I can't, I'll just trim it back there a little bit, and I'll take the hit on the weight, because the motor wires that I'm going to use here will actually fit through that tube there, so maybe I might have to leave it in there, but that shouldn't be a big deal. Alright, so that's how that turned out, much better than I expected, and I was having a lot of trouble getting this plywood piece to come out, and I put these standoffs on there to grip it, and I still needed to use a pair of pliers to grip the standoffs to pull it out, but eventually got there. But what that means is that it's a very, very tight friction fit, so I'm not going to need any screws to hold it in or anything. And when I put it back in, it gets to about this point, and I have to push very hard to get it in. So hopefully I don't break it while I'm putting it in and out like that, because it's just right. And I'll just trim off this Glad wrap there, and the hole going into the top also turned out way better than I could have expected. The nylon tube just pulled straight out, and I have a perfectly smooth, shiny hole going into the middle there, so wires will just slide straight in there without getting stuck or anything.
Okay, it's time to see if this thing flies. The all-up weight is 1283 grams, and I'm using the 3S 4000 milliamp hour battery, and I've had to push it all the way up the front and move the tail a fair bit forwards to make the CG, and even so it's not really what I'm not very comfortable with it, so I wouldn't be too surprised if it's a little bit tail heavy. If it is, I'll put the Runcam 2 on the front and we'll just go with the HD camera right from the beginning. And once again, it's not very easy to throw because it's all flat along the bottom, but anyway. I think it's a bit tail heavy, you know. The prop is not stopping, damn, that's annoying. Look. Yeah, I did set the prop brake. I think if I stalled the plane it would stop. I don't want to try that just yet, certainly not at this altitude. Oh, it stopped now. I think it's tail heavy, it's just not feeling very comfortable, you know? Maybe it just needs to go a bit faster like that. God, that prop sounds awful. There we go, it stopped. Yeah, it's wanting to waver and pitch, so if it pitches up and I correct it by pitching down a little bit, then it pitches down a little too much. And if I correct that, then it pitches up a little too much. So it's sort of tail heavy, I think, is what that is. See that? I didn't want it to go down at all there. Okay. Oops, that was supposed to be a flare kind of a thing. Alright. Okay, so I stuck the Runcam 2 on there now, and that just by coincidence brings the CG to exactly where I thought it should be. So let's give this a try. Okay. It's a good thing I've got this hill here, isn't it? Oh, that feels way better. A little bit of pitch down trim. And the roll trim is almost spot on, I think. In fact, it needs about one click of trim to the right aileron, and that's it. Maybe two. Let's turn that motor off. It sounds terrible. Oh, this feels way better. It's amazing what a difference like 1 centimeter of CG movement makes. So I'm hoping that horrible noise is just a result of the prop being maybe not quite balanced, and it's not anything to do with the motor mounting, like foundation itself. Actually, I should probably do some stall tests, eh? It might be still a tad tail heavy actually, but anyway, I'll roll the motor back, pitch up, see what happens. Oh, that was... Hang on, I have to do it a bit slower I think to get a better idea. I did it too quickly. I didn't realise the elevator was going to be that effective. Okay, I've got the elevator almost all the way back here. Something's going to happen, I'm sure. Okay. Okay, so it stalls about the same as the first A-tail, like twin boom plane that I made. Doesn't seem to be a great glider actually at the moment. I mean, there's not going to be any lift or anything at the moment, but I was expecting that it would be able to keep its altitude a little bit better than this. I guess it's not bad. But regarding the stall, like, the most important thing is that you don't get a surprise stall, because that's what I've found to be the real problem. Like, having a stall in itself is not an issue if you're sort of expecting and you're thinking, uh-oh, I think something's about to happen. The problem is when you're not thinking that and it just goes bang and stalls on you straight away. Just turn it off there. Well, it wants to pitch down a fair bit when it's gliding versus motor, so I guess the thrust line of that motor is not as good as I thought it was. Oops, not that low. Okay, let's try full left rudder here. Oh yeah, it does something. Okay, full right rudder. Oh yeah. Man, it almost sounds like it's got a gas motor on it. Ooh, that was a little close. You know, I think I might just call this to a close here, because that prop, I don't mind if the prop damages itself, but I don't really want it to damage anything else on the plane. Okay, it's the next evening now, and I'm using the 5 amp hour battery, so the all-up weight is 1372 grams. Holy shit. That's way better. Okay, so that, yeah, the other change I made obviously was to move the tail back a little bit. It's gliding here. Oh, and I changed the prop too. One thing I noticed from looking at the video footage from yesterday is that it seems to be quite draggy. Like, it loses a lot more forward speed than I would expect. So maybe that's just because it was a little bit too light, and the extra weight of this 5 amp hour battery, I'm hoping, will help it to like keep its forward speed a bit more. It's looking a little bit more wobbly than yesterday, but that's because the wind is slightly stronger at the moment, I think. But anyway, it looks looks and feels a fair bit better with the extra weight. That's kind of weird, you know. I've always thought that the less weight the better, but maybe not in some cases. The motor is sounding a lot better with that fixed propeller, like not the folding prop. Prop's spinning a lot, unfortunately. I was only able to move the tail back about 5 centimeters. I was hoping to move it back about 10 centimeters. So that's the roll stability with just 2 or 3 clicks of roll trim. So it's way, way better than the flying wing plane was with all that twist that got stuck in there, and I had to trim it out by a huge amount. Okay, that's hands off. Okay. Mostly hands off. Much better than yesterday. It's less tip stally than the ASW28, which was one of the things I was hoping for. Like, I wouldn't have minded if it was about the same, because ASW28, once you get used to it and you sort of expect it, it's not a big deal. Oops. Man, when a flight controller goes on, this is going to be so nice and stable. Because already I'm mostly able to fly. Not quite hands off, but like my stick is barely moving, you know, 2 or 3 millimeters from side to side while I'm flying here. It's quite nice. That, not too bad. It's pitching down a little bit much. Whoops, 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 whoops. Alright, so let's show you from the onboard perspective of the gliding that I was just doing there. Let's get up nice and high. Look about there, throttle off, hands off. A little bit of rudder correction to the left, and it's swooping down. I'm going to have to trim. Okay, now it seems to have leveled out a bit. Roll, that's roll. Still not touching the pitch, and yeah, I was hoping that when it picked up a bit of speed, the pitch would level out so that I didn't have to touch it. So that's kind of wasted all the altitude that I had there. Let's go up again. Alright, so this time I will touch the pitch. And right now I'm pushing forwards on the stick to keep the nose down. And as soon as I turn the power off here, I will pull back on the stick. So that's what I was saying, it's kind of a nuisance, but if you want to get a nice glide like that, you kind of have to. And it's still going nose down more than I want, really. Just gliding. Yeah, it bumped up a bit there, so there's definitely little bits of lift around coming off this hill, but it's so inconsistent and just tiny little bits whenever I find one, so I wouldn't exactly call this slope soaring. But still, gives you a longer glide than I'm getting if I go on the other side of the hill, that's for sure. The prop is not quite stopping. It was very close to it. That was kind of a stall there. But like I said, if you can see them coming, it doesn't really matter. See another one? But they're easy to correct. Oh, that one was a bit nasty. Yeah, I'm getting some decent glide time there, so overall, way better than yesterday. I'm actually getting used to the way it stalls, and I'm using that to do a tight turn, if that makes sense, because what I've noticed is it's not a scary stall at all. See this, I can do a super tight turn, it was almost stalling, and then I can recover when I just pull out of it whenever I want to. Famous last words, eh? But it's kind of unique. I don't think I've had a plane that does this. Well, maybe I have, but I haven't really tried to do it on purpose, like I am at the moment. So let's see if I can do one here. Oh, that was just a stall. Let's try it here. Okay, that was more of a stall too, but you can see how tight you can turn, right? Careful, careful. Okay, let's not do that again. Oh, that's nice. No, I don't want it to get below me. See, that's where you have problems, isn't it? Shit. Oh, I kind of dumped it down there because I knew there were rocks and I didn't want it to hit the rocks. Fortunately, there was still a little bit of grass here. Okay, I've come down here to this bit here. It's not really flat. There's still a little bit of a downslope there, but I don't want to, push my luck too much, so let's see how this goes here. Oh, no problem. It basically didn't go below my shoulder height, really. So that's good to know. Because the flying wing plane that I had, that would never have been able to launch here just now like I did, because there's no wind either. So no wind and no slope. Yeah, that plane was just hopeless to launch in a situation like this. So right about here is as slow as I can really get it, I think, and then it starts to stall. But that's pretty slow. I mean, if you're thermaling, that should be slow enough, I would say. Whoops, there we go, stall. It's basically on the edge of a stall, tip stall the whole way along here. Look how slow that is. Yeah, see? Oh shit. That's not what I was trying to do there. Alright, better let it speed up a bit more. No, almost too slow. Oh boy. It's actually kind of a fun challenge, like keeping it right on the edge of a tip stall. Going as slow as you can. Oh. And not stalling, and not tip stalling completely. And with this plane, it is actually quite possible to do that. Maybe that's why I'm enjoying it so much. Ooh, that wasn't very gentle. Yeah, it's definitely more draggy than it ought to be for some reason. These airfoils are quite thick. so that probably has something to do with it, but I wouldn't have thought it would be that much of a big deal. Man. Okay, it didn't even go below head height that time, so yeah, this is totally fine to launch on a flat surface with no wind. See, with most of my other planes, it would be able to glide back from there where it is now, but this one, it's not going to do it, so I'm going to put the motor on here again. And I'll cut the motor here, which is very close. Like, it should be able to... Oh, well... Yeah... I don't know, it just seems like it doesn't really carry its forward speed very well. Smooth, I like it. See if I can land. Oh yeah, it's not bad. Maybe I'm just underestimating it. Alright, well that's alright.
So that's how the first couple of outings went for this plane. Everything's all still in one piece, there were no mishaps. I'm very satisfied with it so far, and there's just a couple of little niggles that I might modify. One is that the tail area, at least the vertical pieces, I think they're still a little bit small, so I could possibly tack a little bit onto the back. But before I do that, I'm going to put FPV gear on here at some point, so that'll make the front a little bit heavier, and I'll be able to move the tail itself back, and I might just try that first before I do any modifications there. And the other issue is that the motor, the thrust line is a little bit too high, so I'll put a couple of washers maybe on the top two bolts so that the thrust line is going a little bit more down, because whenever I turn the power on, the plane just wants to pitch way up and I have to push the nose down. The folding prop, yeah, like I said in my previous video, I never really liked those much, never had much success with them, so I just went straight back to this normal, that's an 8x6, 1400 kV motor, by the way, just in case anyone's interested. Apart from that though, yeah, it's flying really quite nicely. I was quite enjoying that. So in the next video I'll put a flight controller on it, and maybe we'll get to see some stats about what current draw it's doing in a cruise and things like that. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.